Welcome back, everybody, to Finals Commentary with your boy Sparky and my boy Victor. Say hi, Victor.
Hi, Victor.
We got Steven Anderson and Brian Herlili. I think that's how I say his last name. Doing a Boros Energy Mirror. So, for all you fans out there of the energy decks, strap in for a good time. For Victor, we're gonna put you on. We're gonna have somebody watching you at home, right? Making sure you're okay.
I'm currently in what they would call crisis protocol because I am in agony.
Yeah, this is going to be a whole lot of tokens and resources that are counted outside of the game and stuff like that. But from what me and Victor have talked about, it basically comes down to who can get their card advantage engine going first and establishing a board state, and then that player is normally going to take over the game. I will say that Steve has a je ne sais quoi here, where he's playing Thraben Charm in his main deck, which I think is a very good answer to the mirror.
Yeah, I certainly think it's an interesting choice to forego the two blood moons that you find standard sometimes. Just looking to hate out those greedy mana bases that are still out there in modern currently. So it'll be interesting to see if those Thraben charms end up mattering, especially in game one.
Yeah, I think that's the one that's the most important, right? We have a little bit of action, a little bit more action, I would say, coming from Brian's side. Steve led off with an Ajani, and then we have Brian here with Static Prison on the Ocelot Pride Guide, and then Raptor.
Yeah, the big thing from Brian's side will be obviously, or not obviously, but the difference will be the Ragavans that he has main deck. Steven does not
Sure.
have any mains, so be interested to see if that becomes a factor potentially. Kind of a nice card to have here, considering that everything in your opponent's deck is something that you want to cast anyway. So
No, that's very fair. I also think that while I think Ragavan can sometimes be a liability in some of these matchups, just that it just gets outclassed by a first striking Ocelot Pride or gets blocked by Guide of Souls, that kind of stuff. Another key difference is Steve has three Lightning Bolt and two Galvanic Discharge, where we have Brian with just the 4 and 4 of four Galvanic Discharge, four Static Prison. Steve also has the two Thraben Charm and four Static Prison. So um, another difference: Steve has all four rings, while Brian's only running three rings in his main deck, and then I think nope, none in his sideboard, just three. Uh, we got a little bit of a resource trade back and forth. People, trading some life points away for some swings. I like Raptor. I think Raptor is probably one of your best defensive threats. But I mean, if you're just going to get rid of the Ajani anyway,
yeah, certainly in that regard, Raptor is going to be a huge card here because the spell effect. Um, Maybe
oh, look, it's your boy.
we'll see if and yeah, we'll see this Ragman makes the difference, but I don't know from side. The different and the service certainly you could and do that. I will say though that historically the data is called because no longer deck.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we're playing this deck not only with other items, but also on Magic Online in leagues, getting some 5 up, some 4 ones. He definitely has some on the deck. We'll see if Steve's picking the deck up because I would do the weekend. I would just one more do variant, but picking deck up after punch draws for most of the season, if he's open for Victor here.
I mean, and he also has a Thraben Charm in hand, which maybe we'll get a chance to see it kind of go off and do a little bit, even with that surveil currently.
And he been to prison. Doesn't want to play the prison battle, just wants to blow one of them up, maybe?
Might be taking the line of just wanting to see that fourth land on curve, just so he could have smashed that ring into play, but unfortunately didn't end up being that way.
Back to our poker analogy, Steve's sitting on two pair, two Thraben Charm, two One Ring. I don't hate it.
Brian's gonna have to find a way to make some steady energy here, especially with 2 static prison. That's a lot of energy per turn
It's
when you have
definitely
no guide.
a resource that's hard to manage when you have two prisons in play. Ooh, that's one way to do it. Maybe he just doesn't cast the card. Or it's another
Well,
raptor.
at that point, for the free value, you're gonna cast it anyway. Be where you left
Brian
off. Why not?
Brian over here playing Oops All Raptors.
Let's see. Oh, here we go.
Ooh, that's a nice play. We're gonna get an additional cat and flipper a Johnny.
Here we go.
Good old Wombo combo.
I will say, while I am not a fan of the energy deck, and I think everyone at home knows that, the mirror can certainly be an interesting battle just because your cards are at parity. So, interesting to see how pilots can react to certain situations, especially when your cards are equal in power level.
Yeah, as someone who I know you to be a big fan of mid-range mirrors and playing the mid-range matchups, I think this is something you would enjoy. Like, I think trying to parse your way through these matchups where it's a lot of the same cards doing a lot of the same stuff, it might be a little fun for you. Whereas I know there are some matchups where energy just blows decks out of the water. Those are the matchups you don't like. But this is a lot of like, what card do I want to play now? What card do I want to hold? It's definitely pretty interesting.
Yeah, and if we certainly take a look at how energy has started to slowly morph modern into every deck has to unfortunately have like a combo end game just because sometimes you're in a situation where energy is just going to absolutely bury you in resources. I mean, if you look at these board states just from 3 mana, there's 3 lands in play for each of our players here, and this is the boards that they have. It's a lot of value. So you're playing all these other decks, you basically need to have a combo kill that just says, hey, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're dead. So
Yeah, and that's why we've seen like the rise of a lot of the storm decks and the belcher decks just trying to press the advantage. Uh I'm putting if we had a advantage bar, I'm putting it fairly in Brian's favor here.
yeah, absolutely. Especially with this bombardment. If there was no bombardment, depending on the threat that gets put down with the follow up,
So,
especially with that,
mm, yeah,
bombardment's best friend.
I only
Wow.
yeah. I mean, he had Steve had it rolled up regardless if he plays the Ajani or the bombardment first. He either answers the Ajani or answers the bombardment. I think we can just keep shilling stuff.
Yeah, so those Thraben charms certainly making a difference to
Yeah,
allow
Brian.
for a unique situation with Steven not being immediately out of this game.
Yeah, and I mean, he just draws a card. He draws one land here, and he's in the game with the ring. Attack
Well, in
you.
I was just about to say, in traditional Ragavan fashion, it either hits the land you needed or it hits the removal you needed. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, where they're back-to-back lands on top of Steve's deck. I think if it's
No
a
need to
land,
be shy. Let's
if
miracle
it's
the
a land, he
land.
just slams it. Like I don't think he thinks about it.
He did
Ooh,
not.
just as good as a land there. Plus it. Yerp.
Yeah, devote the full. Because at that point, what's the difference? Though, I mean, a blocker could make it. Because what? They're both 2/1s. So you make a guy, it goes to 1 anyway. And then they potentially still lose a guy.
That's fair.
The problem is if he has removal. but low amount of cards. So it looks like he does, in fact, have the removal he needs.
Brian's technically sitting with only one card in his hand. I don't think he wants to play that Blood Moon anytime soon.
No, he's
If I
definitely not favored in the non-basic
if I was in
sections.
Brian's
So
seat, I would exile the creature and then kill the Ajani and move forward with the game.
yeah,
Just
I mean,
just gain just gain the extra 4 energy here.
you could be risky and just go one at him, one at Johnny.
Ooh, he did split it up. Good call, Vic.
Yeah, sometimes if you think about it, because everything in your opponent's deck is completely castable in more than one way, it's almost the advantage potential has got a lot of upside. It's a little bit of a swingy play, but
Sure.
I think if it pays off for you, which more likely than not, can certainly be worth it. Oh, all right, and there's the
Nat
okay.
draws the planes. Had it rolled up anyway.
Says I don't need the
And,
ring, I just need Flage.
and there goes Brian's white sources.
Just remember that Uro died for this.
Hey man, we don't need to go there.
Hey, listen, I played the card.
I was not lucky enough to play at that point, but I'm happy I didn't. Yeah, I think we're swinging the advantage bar all the way over to Steve's direction here. He's going to have a Flage on board with his opponent having nothing, and then lethal on the next turn and a One Ring here.
Yeah, you just slam the one ring. You just want to make sure that your opponent has very few outs.
And with those 2 Thraben charms, he was able to swing everything back in his direction, which is nuts.
Yeah, no, that was certainly a fortunate string of moments that allowed those cards to be better than potentially just another removal spell.
Oh,
So
100%. Yeah. Like this, the unfortunate part is this Blood Moon's just been like putting Brian on the back foot. And then the card advantage is just taken over. And that's game one. That's the power of Boros energy, ladies and gentlemen. Just like you think you're behind, and then all of a sudden you're ahead. Looking at the sideboards here, I think I'm not quite sure what I exactly want. I probably, if I'm Brian. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Darian, producer extraordinaire. If I'm Brian, I think I want to at least bring in the exercise and the sun cleanser. I know a lot of people say sun cleanser is not great right now, but it's definitely a card that can stop the energy buildup if your opponent has like an early guide draw with like guides into raptors. And then I'm also a big fan of the Thraben charms. Is there anything you like here?
so looking at Brian's board, the Thraben charms seem like they'll be. I mean, as we know from game one, watching Steven use those to take over.
Yeah,
I mean, surgical is a potential. Um,
that's true.
the mid range player in me, because and one of the great articles of any Magic player who is trying to elevate his game, who's the beatdown, 1 and 2. If you've ever read the second one, it kind of
Michael J. Flores.
talks about the inevitability of the decks that you have going on. And with that being said, if Brian says, well, I'm on the play and I can build up this board because I'm going to play first and I'll build up that board and control whatever my opponent tries to whittle down, I kind of like the Orm's chance. I could be wrong in terms of actual, theory, but the idea of curving out turns 1, 2, and 3 into a board of, synergistic creatures into, okay, the only thing you could have here that's really going to devastate me is either a ring or some sort of card that allows you to get back, whether that's Goblin Bombardment with an Ajani or whatever have you. It doesn't seem like that bad of an idea of just one mana time walk you and completely shut out the game. Because for both of these decks, turn 4 is going to be a huge spot. And while traditionally that's more of a card used against like Eldrazi because you're trying to cut off that turn, that 7 mana
Hmm.
or more turn, I don't think it's a bad idea in this particular mirror. I could be totally wrong though.
No, I think that's fine. I think if keen-eyed viewers spotted, Brian took out his Blood Moons, the Ragavans, and a couple of discharges in order to bring in some of the white cards that we had spec'd on. Orm's Chant wasn't one of them, although I do think Orm's Chant's pretty interesting because you can like stop an Amped Raptor with like an Amped Raptor trigger on this deck. All they do is just gain the energy. They can't get the extra spell, which is kind of nice. We see a guide draw from both players here.
Every
Also,
time I'll go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. I'm sorry. I just thought it was interesting for Brian not to play guide on turn one. I'm not sure if it wasn't in his hand, but like, if he didn't do it, I think that was probably the right thing. Maybe. Not sure though.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's trying to. I mean, Brian has way more experience in the mirror matchup than I do, so I'm gonna certainly say that I'm sure he had some pretty good reasons for doing so.
Yeah.
Hey, look at the value.
Raptors on Raptors. Looking at Steve's hand, he's got a couple lands and a Flage, and he's going into his turn three. So I don't think it's that bad of him just like flaging down one of these Raptors and stemming some of the bleeding from an aggressive start for Brian.
Yeah, no, Fleet certainly the 3 drop that you want to see here. It's unfortunate because you're leaving yourself with an empty board and you're staring down a 2-1 and the potential for Brian to slam a ring, which you don't want to see, but you you have to just you can't really play around that too much. So
Yeah, of course. I think one of the downsides here is Steve doesn't have any energy producers right now. Like even if it's an amp raptor or something to give him the extra energy to keep the prison around. Oh, baby, surgical on the flage,
yeah,
and then
Brian
gets
basically just says, I don't want you to do it, and I only want to be able to do it," which may certainly become a factor here.
yeah, and then he gets the good news. He's got a Fear Fire Foes, a cat, and 2 lands. Huge.
I
Now,
know. Oh, go ahead.
now,
That's
would
all
you
me.
snap it off? Would you snap off the surgical here, or wait till your opponent goes to their draw step, draws their card?
Um, I don't think there's anything that the energy decks can do instant speed that matters with the graveyard. So I'm probably waiting. Your opponent's already tapped out. It's not like they're doing anything anyway. There's no solitudes of any kind in the deck, so I certainly think it's probably better to wait, but it wasn't necessarily hurting his win loss percentages in this particular matchup by not.
Of course. And for the viewer at home, we wait till the draw step because if they draw a flage, you can make them basically discard an extra card out of their hand with the surgical. And a Fear Fire Foes cleans up the battlefield from Steve.
Yeah, I like Brian's idea here. Just make him use it now because the longer the game goes on, the worse it's going to be for him to you trying to show his one ring on top after the surveil there.
I think that's what it was. I didn't get a clear view of it, but I thought it was at least something good.
Looks like Brian is. Oh no, never
Oh, it wasn't.
mind.
Ugh.
Said, hey, I want to do the same thing.
Yeah,
Brian is sitting on a one ring.
and now without the big closer of Flage Titan of Fire's Fury, both decks are just kind of measly aggro decks here.
I'll tell you what, if we're gonna call him measly, that's a really strong measly still. I mean,
No, I'm in full
98%
agreement
of
with
the
you.
deck is still its engine. I mean, the Flage is obviously extremely nice because sometimes it just turns the corner and says this game's not going that much longer. But um, you know what? We'll
Yeah.
chug along.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Steve put down a blocker. I mean, his life total's not in the single digits yet where he has to worry.
Well, Brian,
Little bleed of information there.
yeah. I mean, Steven can certainly breathe a sigh of relief. Anything that isn't a land here is actually better than a land at this point. You'd
Sure.
much rather it be a non-land card in this particular moment.
This is a kind of interesting moment. I almost would have liked to see Brian attack with the Cat Warrior token. Like, even though it's into the Ocelot Pride, we could have flipped our Ajani and then, like, plussed it to make our Ocelot Pride a 2/2. I don't know.
I think if you're looking at life totals, trying to see the situation, your opponent's got low cards in hand. You're probably trying to close the game out before anything else can come into play. Especially, except here we go. Brian hits that fourth land so that he can play this ring.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Would gladly lose the 3 life, has life to spare. We knew that was coming down. Let's see if he brings any of the boys.
I think the 2/1's a free investment.
Yeah,
You're not worried about an alpha strike. There's none of that happening. So it's either a free 2 damage or a flip of your planeswalker who then makes another one anyway. And unless I'm wrong,
I,
Steven only has the
he's got
elk.
one more elegant parlor. He has the elk in hand, but I like him finding the elegant parlor, surveilling, using the information, and then making a decision. Give yourself the most amount of information you can have about what the possible next turn is going to look like, and then make a decision on if you want him to flip the Ajani or not. Looked like a land.
Yeah, a little hard to see, but the way he snapped that into the yard definitely made me feel like that was
It has the
a
same
land.
corner as one of the planes, so I assume it's a land.
Oh, that's a good eye. Thank goodness for that production team with this high quality sky cam.
Yeah, baby.
I'm not sure if Skycam is trademarked by CBS, but I'll call it that anyway.
Achievement unlocked. Elk is on the board. And now we get to see if Brian can go to work with this one ring, drawing 3 cards this turn in total.
All right, Brian's gonna draw just to see if he can.
Find a discharge.
Yeah, get a discharge, something like that, but he cannot. So
With those static prisons off the table now, and I know Steve's at 8 life, but like he's mounting a presence.
I mean, yeah, if you really look at it, your board's at parity, except the biggest difference maker is that, well,
Ooh, baby. That is huge. Do we have enough dice to make counters?
I left my Dice Factory deck at home, so I certainly didn't have enough that day. But
Yeah.
all right, so Brian is going to go with that plus. Was wondering what he was going to break it down to. I believe this puts him into a situation. He certainly doesn't have to block everything, but he's gotta at least get the 3-2 off the table.
I'm actually okay with him just sitting. I guess they both have the city's blessing right now. I'm okay with him just sitting back because he has the active Ajani here. The problem is if either one of those cards is a creature like that.
Hey, look at that! Look at a Johnny.
Yeah,
Except now here's the biggest difference maker. I mean, Steven's gonna get a bunch of gaining life and energy triggers, but
but he
also
has
he
a
has a
red
red
creature.
permanent it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a little worried if he was gonna miss those triggers, but luckily I think it's all kind of on the same stack there, so it's not the end of the world.
Did we miss a cat?
Um,
Oh no. Okay, that was the first one. I was wondering about if he zeroed or not.
yeah, that is the correct amount.
Yeah.
So I guess we're
Okay.
gonna find out what's better: a Guide of Souls or a One Ring.
I mean, I just get in for 7 here, right?
Uh,
Send that.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Eh,
Oh, okay. He wants the life.
this is fair. I think this is a fair attack as well. He does have to lose 3 of that energy.
I mean, he's going to get 2/1/1 cats plus 2 cat warriors as
Yeah,
well.
I just want to make sure we just kept it correct.
It's a lot of life.
Our production team's trying to find the number of tokens he needs, just so we could. It should have been 4 total energy and 4 life.
1, 2. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, you are correct.
because he got the first cat, then he made a copy, and then he got the 2 warriors.
It's a lot of math. It's a lot to
Hopefully
pay
that doesn't
attention to.
matter. We'll just tentatively say he's at 18, but it looked like that was air from Brian with an Aether Hub. 1, 2, 3. Ah. Is it a bombardment?
That would certainly be a helpful.
I mean, bombardment and then Raptor flip into a Johnny? Whoa.
That would be a lot of value, especially because I mean, even with these extra cards, Brian's a little behind still.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm just doing a little cleaning up.
Yeah. Thank you, production team. We do have to get some more dice soon, relatively. But that's for another time.
Well, if I have any sway in the political standpoint of the ban list, maybe we won't even have to worry.
That's
Hopefully,
true.
just know there's no other deck that needs to make so many counters on everything.
Yeah. Ooh, another 1 rank here would be nice too.
Easy, Johnny.
Oh. Okay, a Johnny makes token. I know we had 15 in our token bin, so we definitely have more than enough for this. Show Steve the bad news.
Oh boy.
Baby boy. I don't know if he should have conceded there. One, two,
Yeah,
three, four,
I didn't
five,
get the chance to start
six.
doing the combat math, but I guess that'll be for what we can all do for our extracurricular activities over the next couple of days to see if.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that at a later date to see if he was really dead.
I mean,
Maybe
it
he was.
certainly was a lot, but
Maybe he was
and
saying
then
that just because. Sorry to cut you off. Maybe he was saying that just because he thought that the Ajani was just gonna machine gun down his board, like kill the elk and then move down. Right?
yeah, because everything else was an X1. There were still a lot of tokens in play though. I don't know. I think Brian maybe just needed to. I'm sorry. I think Steven needed to just take a quick breath and just double check, or even if you think you're losing, I mean, go to combat at that point. Let it happen and just see where the dust settles on your life total. Because if you
He
thought you
had.
were dead anyway,
Yeah, he had more than enough tokens to put them in front of the Ocelot Prides. I think Steve was just assuming Brian was going to get Ocelot Pride triggers, and that wasn't a guarantee if he doesn't attack with an Ocelot Pride.
yeah, because then you could just put in maybe two in front and block and lose one, and then you're not getting as many tokens as you had planned. I don't know.
So
That would have been interesting to see that make it to the combat step, but
yeah, but we're here for game three. On the play, we got Steve on his turn two with an Ajani. It seems that Johnny's AJ's been the talk of the town for this specific mirror match. Whoever can get it down and flip it is probably who's going to be in the driver's seat. And Brian's looking like he's going to make possibly the same decision, or he's thinking about a static prison. Never mind, I was wrong.
not sure if I'm totally thrilled with the idea of the Sun Cleanser. I mean, it's a great blocker
True.
overall. However, because of the way that Static Prison is unfortunately worded, um, it doesn't really matter, especially when you think Static Prison is going to be their main removal spell for the rest of the game. But
Yeah.
and that's pretty good as well. Now your Cat Warriors can't die to the Sun Cleanser for any reason.
I think if Steve had started with like some amount of energy already, where you're stealing a resource from your opponent, I think Sun Cleanser there's probably the right thing to do. But again, I think I'm just going to divert back to the master of the deck, Brian, in the Sun Cleanser play.
Yeah, at that point, get the Johnnies out of the way.
Yeah, that's just a Johnny's gone. Steve's going to be able to get down a ring, but them's the beats. Did he sideboard out in a Johnny?
I could not see how I did. I kind of lost count of.
I think there were only three there.
Maybe he felt that. It
Oh,
was just
there's
too
one under
clogged.
Static Prison.
Oh yeah, absolutely correct.
uh,
Never mind, we're
so
next leveling ourselves, so there is
yeah,
still one sort of around and available if he wants there to be.
from Steve's side with the shuffling, we can see he brought in not only the surgical extraction that he played in the other game, but he also brought in the Soul Guide Lantern. And I would assume the Fear Fire foes and maybe an exercise.
Yeah, those would
Possibly.
all be things that I couldn't be upset with. Though I wouldn't have minded seeing instead of Soul Guide Lantern. I don't know how if he brought in both or just only one of each. I kind of like Ghost Vacuum just because of the fact that getting back a bunch of creatures as 1/1s would certainly have some merit for a late game kind of after you've been trading resources all day with your opponent here. That would have been quite the interesting tech to see that.
Yeah, that's probably on the docket. Steve here wondering which planes to get out of his deck to play this One Ring. or maybe he prisons the prison to get a Johnny back.
See, I was thinking about that when they were resolving the surgical. The only downside is that you get no energy from from that particular line. So you're basically trying. I could see it if it was like your final turn or you had a goblin bombardment to go
Sure.
nuts and absolutely blow everything up. But
Yeah,
because he's not going to have that kind of impact right away, I don't think playing the static prison would have given him anything good to write home about.
that's fair. In the shuffling, I did see the Ghost Vacuum in his deck,
Oh, excellent! Well,
so that was a good call on your part.
unfortunately, yeah, yeah. I don't know if we'll get to see it come to fruition at this particular junction, but certainly would have been an interesting turn one play to see that kind of tech go down. Not only for its second ability, but also just keeping your opponent off flage and
No, for sure. It appears we have AJ. Oh, it looks like another prison and a One Ring. Brian's choosing to go with the One Ring. This is like dueling pianos, going back and forth to see who draws what.
they both play a terrible tune as every Magic player cries out in frustration.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Hopefully, we see that card go. That looked like a land.
It was a
Maybe a
surgical
surgical.
Sacred Founder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So not exactly what you're looking for at the moment. I don't think
No.
Brian's got anything in the graveyard
That
worth
looks like there's
surgicaling.
3 lands in his hand for Steve. 3 lands with surgical, Ocelot Pride, and then another white card,
Static
which
Prison.
can't be. Oh, Static Prison. Okay.
Yep, it's the Static Prison for the
Yep, you're
first.
right. You think he's going to go for the prison now on the Sun Cleanser?
It's a tough call because you're not exactly getting an immediate payoff, while the idea of maybe just taking out the ring for a turn could be an interesting prospect to
Sure.
just slow down the card draw of your opponent. Your card quality is kind of lower. You don't know, obviously, you don't know what's in your opponent's hand, but I mean, getting stuck with quite a few lands and a surgical and static prison at this point isn't where I would want to be, but that's just me.
Huh. Does use all his mana, buys the Giganta. Brian here drawing 2. Also hitting some lands.
Can't tell if he's had that Guide of Souls or if that was one of the cards he potentially drew.
I think he just drew it. And I think now is the time where he needs to start applying a little bit of pressure. If he's got follow-up creatures, I
Yeah.
like it. I think he's got an Ajani to follow it up with. AJ's on the bird.
It's quite funny when you and I were watching this as it happened live and getting the fortunate um thing of just being a spectator. Just for me, watching the turns and how explosive they could be from each player just showed me that, I mean, I can honestly say that I don't know if I've ever seen a modern deck contextually be this powerful. I don't even know that if you hadn't given Nadu the Banehammer, if it could have competed with what this iteration of energy ended up turning into.
I think there were definitely times when Nadu was able to have like what it's quote unquote like nut draw, where it just obviously outpaced a lot of what its opponents were doing and was able to make the land drops and then start the loop going. But like I think a fair Nadu deck is probably not beating this deck.
And
Like,
let me
had
say
they.
for the old heads at home, I was not around for Splinter Twin Modern, so I never had the pleasure or displeasure of going against that. But I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't know. I mean, maybe people that play No Bandless Modern can get back to me on that if it wouldn't have made a difference. But
So
I
I
don't
wouldn't
know.
even say Splinter Twin. Did you play against any KCI decks?
Yes,
So
that was
I would
miserable.
almost compare that to this in a sense. Like, you weren't sure that the inevitability was there, but sooner or later things would happen. And then, like, that's when you realized that the boa constrictor had wrapped you up and it was over. But like when it started off very meek and meager, and then like was able to switch the gear, which is what we're seeing with these decks, just being able to like pile out permanence into play, and then like still just have the One Ring drawing cards and keeping them in the game. Like Steve's not out of it. Like he's at 10 life, but and he just threw three
Oof.
lands. Oh,
The
he's,
ring giveth and the ring taketh away.
I think he's got 6 lands in hand at this moment.
Yeah,
And then
I
he's got the
mean,
static prison and the surgical, and that's it.
he certainly had some opportunities to have a very explosive play, but drawing 3 lands in a row is not going to be doing it. Oh, and Steven just showing him how bad
Oh
it
no, I'm
is.
sorry. He's got a bombardment. I thought there was a Gigantha as well. I thought he picked up the Gigantha. Oh
He
no.
did. It's the second card in his
Oh,
hand
that's
there.
okay. It's not a bombardment. Sorry, and I'm not sure. One of them has the Enchanted Evenings bombardments. So, oh no, he does. He does have. He's got Gigantha and a bombardment. Okay, a bunch of lands: prison, Gigantha, bombardment, and surgical.
I mean, I tip my cap to Steve. When I was watching from the bottom left of our all of our screens at home here, I was standing there watching it, thinking there's almost nothing that I felt could happen here, knowing the cards available. But he certainly gives it his best thought here to see how he can potentially navigate out of this.
Yeah, I'd take a full 3 minutes making a decision here. Like he's not pressed for time. Obviously, this is untimed, but like you need to be able to make these decisions. I mean, and this is the play that I had said before, but it works better now because he's got a bombardment.
Could you imagine if the elk would allow you to pay generic costs and he could have had elk plus bombardment in play?
Sure. I think the Elk's fair the way that it is right now, though.
Oh, it needs to be that way. This is more of a what if scenario for all of
Oh,
our
sure. Yeah.
Marvel friends at home.
Trigger Johnny. And then he can just, with the token, kill the Ajani. Well.
I mean, what a turn. You're certainly not out of the
Yeah,
woods, but you're
I'm.
not dead.
Eh, depending on the cards that Brian can draw, if he draws 3 bangers, he's out of it.
Yeah, I mean, your hope has to be that maybe fortune can help you out a little bit and put you in a scenario where maybe your opponent can draw just as poorly as you.
The amount of creatures I would put in front of this Ocelot Pride right now is obscene. I'd put every single one of my creatures in front of it, with the exception of the Guide of Souls. Like cat, all of them.
Well, he's halfway there to your proposition.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that, viewer at home, and Victor, in case Victor doesn't know, but I think he does, is you want that pride dead. You don't want that pride to stick around till the end step. It has to die. And if Steve wants to sacrifice his board to ping off some of these things to kill the board, that's fine. Brian got there.
So what's the move? Kill the 2/1 with the first strike damage, and then sacrifice to
Yeah, and
double
then
number one. Kill
sacrifice
the
and
other
kill
one.
another 2/1. Yeah. I don't think he shot anything.
Interesting.
Yeah. That could have just been a slip up. He just like took the damage or let it die. Brian draws. That looked like a one ring.
Fortunately, Brian drawing his cards to the back of his hand doesn't exactly help us, but
There's a white card at the front. That's an Ocelot Pride. It does look like he's found a few lands, though. I think one of them was a mountain.
let's not forget they both have arenas of glory, which can certainly develop into an interesting situation.
I don't mind this decision from Steve here, where he might want to like ping down some of the threats. The problem is he's probably going to lose most of his board doing so because he only has 3 creatures to do that.
Yeah, I guess though wouldn't it just be better to wait because you need the onslaught pride to make it to the end step anyway.
Yeah, and that's one of the things he wants to ping down for sure. Now, as far as what I would make fly, like if I'm Brian going to attacks,
So yeah, I'm not.
that's pretty big.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled with that. I don't think the. I think the flying would have sucked, but I think the pride is the bigger problem anyway. So now, what does your 3/2 do? It's to block one thing and then
Yeah.
kill the pride. I don't know. I think you could have just made it through to the blockers to
Throw
maybe
Arena
something a
in
little
the
bit
bin.
more.
I do think we have to kill this Johnny, though. For sure. I think a Johnny on the other side is definitely a problem for us with bombardment in play.
Which is why I'm still not thrilled about that play of sacrificing those 2 creatures. I guess though, if you don't do it, your guide of souls makes something fly, and then it's probably dead anyway. So maybe it's 2.5, one doesn't the other.
Yeah, and it also, like you said, it stops the game life trigger. I don't think I attack with the 2 little cats because he gets a free block on the little cat. Hmm. Again, you could have free blocked and then still done that.
Fresh ring is
Oh,
okay.
and he
So
keeps the big one.
was certainly interested to see if he would want to do that. I didn't know if he would or if he cared to, but I mean, you're ahead on
Yeah,
life.
I think you hit the bombardment here. You could hit the one ring and make him draw the cards. One Ring, Flage, Bombardment, and Ghost Vacuum.
Little late to see my experiment, but still cool to see that I had a potentially right idea.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think the play here is Mountain, play Flage, escape Flage. You get to gain 9 life this turn.
Oh boy, yeah, that's some sort of play.
Yeah, you go to 17. Wait, not the Sun Cleanser?
I guess his the idea is take more off the board.
That's fair. I guess the crackback is only what, 2?
2 damage at most. I mean,
So
hasty
if
stuff aside.
so Brian's going to draw 4 cards here. If he draws a Flage of his own, he gets to get in for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 damage with the 2 dudes in play.
Yeah, I think
If Ryan
he's
draws a Flage, the game ends. Because what is Steve still has the surgical extraction. Because if you stack the triggers correctly, you can't get surgicaled out of the game. Because you stack it so that the escape resolves last, and then you have priority to cast your spell again. And he has the Arena of Glory too, and I think possibly another land in hand.
yeah. I mean, with the lands being what they were, I don't know if I don't know if anything else is more mana efficient to save you from that. Though he did have a ring, so he might have actually been able to just kind of build a turn up and then have done that later. I don't know.
He's discarding the Aether Hub because it's useless right now with the Sun Cleanser in play.
Yeah, you certainly don't want that land when you have a opposing Sun Cleanser.
Brian drew an Amp Raptor.
And an entirely new hand.
Oh, that looks like at least 2 lands and a white card. I think this is the point where Brian's drawing a bunch of lands. I think if there was a Flage there, we would have seen it.
Yeah, at that point, especially with the line that you had talked about. I mean, granted, sometimes when you're looking at it from the bird's eye view, you see a little bit different things, but
Sure.
I'd be surprised if Brian hadn't thought about that line. So he's gonna float the red mana. I would hope anyway. Okay, so he's gonna hit the one ring, make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Ooh, he's got 2 removal spells and a bunch of lands. Again, this gets us, or no, it doesn't, because we used the Arena of Glory. He might have another arena in his hand, and I'm not sure if he played his land for the turn yet.
But did he
2,
not do
3,
the
4, 5,
float, the
6.
extra red? Oh, he did not.
He did not.
Okay, not a particular fan of that
No,
breakdown, but I mean,
I think you have to hit his one ring. Yeah, as bad as Flage is, you have the Galvanic Discharge to deal with it. This is much closer than I would have originally thought it was.
I mean, if you compare it from 2 to 3 turns ago, where Brian has a board and Steve has next to nothing besides a ring and a hope, it is
Brian
certainly
buys his
astounding.
elk. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely such a very interesting dichotomy of like how these decks parry and thrust back and forth with what they're doing.
6 mana available, 7 potentially with the land drop, depending on
Yeah, he's
what
got a
he's
Sacred
got.
Foundry to play and a fetch, I believe.
There is a Goblin Bombardment in his hand as well. However, Steven, no more Johnnies as well.
Yeah, I think this is where we got to peel off the red source, go down to 3 energy, nuke it. The unfortunate part is he can just cast it right now. He can just get the Flage back immediately. Yeah, Steve's just hitting all bangers. That's another Amp Raptor, although can't really do anything with that. Ooh, he's gonna play a Ghost Vacuum here?
Which is slightly interesting. The only problem is again, like you said, you're not going to be able to get it. You're not going to be able to snipe it from the yard with
Yeah,
no
if
way to perform the. It was Arnie Huschenbeck. I know I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly, but the whole
oh yeah,
to
the
get the
add another
ox.
trigger. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
was
So
that was because he was able to add another spell to the stack and then counter it. With no counter spells and stuff like that, any other of these decks, unless you have like a reprieve or something, I don't see there being a point of interaction. This
I
is a
mean,
whole new hand.
yeah, this is
I saw 2 lands. Ooh, that's a Thraben
Raven
Charm.
Charm.
Okay, let's see what he lines up for the turn. And a bombardment. Uh oh. Can he just go wide here? Plays Mountain for the turn.
Well, if he has bombardment, his opponent's at a
He if he plays if he
is
plays bombardment and 2 creatures, the game's just over.
I think he heard you a little bit, so he's going to start with the Raptor. Galvanic. Might as well get the extra 2 energy. Okay, then hopefully we figure out that that's actually
No,
worth
he
a
should be
little
up
less.
2. Yeah, that's my voice in the background. Yeah,
There you are.
yeah. That's it. Him paying that 2 life for the ghost vacuum. He could have. I think he had a fetch line. He could have just found a basic.
Well, I think if you're gonna play the One Ring, I don't even know if you play the you play it tapped and you just say go and just see what happens afterwards because
Sure.
I mean the Flage being in play versus in the graveyard at that point, what's the difference? Even more brutal.
Steve having the epiphany. Maybe I should not have shocked. Uh,
Especially because that yeah, has the Thraben Charm to exile the graveyard. Doesn't even give Steven the out of having anything else at this point.
I mean, I would just let him put the flage on the stack and kill him. In response.
Either that or right now with the One Ring trigger on the stack. Just I guess it. I guess it. I don't know if it would really matter either way.
I'm letting my opponent do anything they want until they can stop me from killing them. And that's it.
And there we go.
Brian is our official first OCHO champion. He's getting a custom playmat, a token made in his likeness. Good stuff. But that's been us for commentary. I've been Sparky. We got my boy Victor. Victor, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for supporting us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.